From Dallas, Texas, this is Spool, hosted by Dr. Nils Roemer, Dean of the Bass School at UT Dallas.
Thank you again for tuning in to Spool. I'm so thrilled today to welcome two exceptional individuals, Leesa and Gary, who are really dedicating themselves to such a beautiful cause. Joining me today here are Leesa and Gary Price. I'm really incredibly excited to meet the two. You have an incredible story to tell, and we'll have hopefully a little bit of time to get into it. Leesa Price is the Senior Vice President of the Statue of Responsibility Foundation, and Gary Price is a world-renowned sculptor and author and creator of a sculpture for the Statue of Responsibility. Together, they're really helping to bring this alive, this vision of creating this other statue on the East Coast as a kind of counterpart to or on the West Coast rather, as a counterpart to the one that we are all familiar. And by doing that, they're pursuing really the dream and aspiration of an exceptional individual called Viktor Frankl that is known to most of us simply through his book, Man's Search for Meaning, but otherwise also really known as an incredible psychiatrist and as a survivor of the Holocaust. So Frankl really, just to get it out there, believed that while the United States gave the world the Statue of Liberty, that it should also one day be complemented by a Statue of Responsibility, reminding us in lots of ways that freedom and responsibilities belong really together. So the two of you are really at the forefront of making that happen. But before we learn a little bit more, tell me, what does responsibility mean for you?
I love the definition of the ability to respond. I think that's a great definition.
Right.
So that folks understand a little bit more about Viktor Frankl. So just if you don't mind, just the kind of bare bones of his biography. I believe he was born in Vienna in 1905 and then became really one of the new psychiatrists in this incredible, bubbly environment of Vienna, right? Vienna was really, if back in the 1920s, maybe you wanted to be in Berlin, or if you're in the 1890s, wanted to be in Paris. 10 years later, you really wanted to be in Vienna. That's where lots of things happened. And Frankl represents this really unique breakaway, often associated with the third school of the Viennese school, meaning he follows Freud and Adler. Freud had it simple. He said, what do you want in life? And the answer was pleasure. Then came Adler along and said, what do you want in life? Power. But then Frankl came around and said, no, you got it all wrong. It's meaning that we're looking for, right? And so that's the search for meaning and what made him incredibly popular. But the interesting part about that book is that it acquired the title actually only, I think, in the 50s in the English translation, and the original German that was released in 1946 had still like experimental something with titles in experiments in concentration camps. In other words, was more closely tied to his experience of the Holocaust. And so, however, he comes away from having lost his loved ones, his family, including his wife, and surviving the Holocaust with this kind of commitment to this quest for meaning, right? You would think that with that experience in mind, it would rather be how to deal with trauma or something like that, but it's rather on the opposite end. But in that book, he talks about the Statue of Responsibility, and I think that's where you guys got your cue from, right? So talk to us a little bit about the foundation and what your aspiration is there.
So it's such a beautiful story. It involves Mrs. Frankl, it involves the whole Frankl family, it involves Stephen Covey, who was Dr. Frankl's colleague, and it's just a beautiful story of all of us coming together. Even though I had never personally met Dr. Frankl, the fact that he had this idea of bookending our nation, which I think is an incredible vision.
Just it is a wonderful vision.
Visually, to think, okay, you've got one statue here, bookend your whole nation with something over here. Something so meaningful,
right?
And so it's boy, I love talking about it because I could go on for hours and hours of so many beautiful stories and things we actually call miracles,
right,
to get us to this point right now of where we're at with the statue.
But just so we understand this correctly, Gary, we're not talking about a little statue, right? This is not exactly what the aspirations are. So statues, they come in all kind of sizes. So it is supposed to be, you called it a bookend, but it's also supposed to be sizable enough so that it matches up with the Statue of Liberty. So can you tell us a little bit about the current plans for the design and size?
Exactly. So the statue itself, the Statue of Liberty, is 150 feet tall, and she's on a plinth, a base of 150 feet tall. So totally 305 feet.
Yeah.
So that's pretty tall. I believe that the statue itself, the Statue of Responsibility itself, should at least be 150 feet tall, because that is the actual base and the height of the Statue of Liberty. I also believe that I want people to be able to come up and touch the statue itself. I remember years ago going out and seeing the Statue of Liberty. I was kind of being a tactile person, kind of disappointed that I couldn't go up and touch that beautiful statue. And so I want people to be able to do that with this statue.
Yes.
Gary, this was a bit of a teaser. Bring it back one more time. You didn't really give us a full exposure. So.
And that is actually the very version that he shared with Ellie Frankl. So I think your audience would love to know that an exact replica of this very piece sits in Viktor Frankl's study in Vienna, Austria to this day.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So tell us about this design. I mean, I'll see hands kind of folding into each other, but if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about those hands. I think they have quite a bit of symbolic power there.
So years ago, early on in my career, so my grandmother is part Cherokee Indian, and I felt an affinity to sculpt Native Americans, the indigenous peoples of America. And I did a sculpture of a Native American reaching down, lifting another Indian up a precipice, up a cliff. And in being asked by Dr. Covey to design a statue of responsibility according to Viktor Frankl's idea, I thought, well, how do you depict responsibility?
That's right.
Yeah. It's such a big word. Some people are afraid of the word. How do you depict it? Being a figurative sculptor, I wanted something that people could identify with. And that particular sculpture that I did of the two Indians climbing, helping each other up, became very, very popular. We put it into galleries. It was called The Ascent. They rise highest who lift as they go.
So it's the idea that it's responsible for. In other words, we are responsible with each other, for each other, and therefore you have this intertwining of the different hands?
Yes.
Well, and one's a left hand and one's a right hand, because responsibility begins where? Right here. With
All right, yes. Yes.
And,
I can
and
see how
design-wise, it just worked really, really well visually to have that fit in there.
Incredible. So tell me, where are we now in this quest of creating this statue, fundraising for it, designing it, finding land to put it? So where are we in all of this?
And I'll let Leesa answer that, but in a nutshell, everything is turnkey. All the fundraising, everything. The only thing that is lacking right now is a definite location of where to put this on somewhere on the West Coast.
And I'll clarify that we don't have all the funds raised, because a large portion of what we want to raise for the Statue of Responsibility, we want to do the same way they raised the money for the Statue of Liberty, and I'll get back to that. But right now, we are really hoping to answer Ellie Frankl, Viktor's widow's, wish as Gary left the studio, the apartment that day after leaving this piece there. She said, I know where it should go, Gary. It should be in San Diego, because that is where Viktor and I would stay every year when we came back to America for him to do his lecturing tour. He had a post at what is now called Alliant University. And so she knew that would be the ideal spot. So we have been on a mission for many years now to make something happen in San Diego County because of that. Now I'll go forward to last summer. We were able to actually install a 15-foot version of this very one at Alliant University, right where Viktor Frankl actually taught. So that opened all kinds of doors for us. Prior to that, California was a very challenging demographic for a statue of responsibility, and I'll leave it at that. But
Well, it's also difficult.
No. And, we wanted to exhaust every possible effort that we possibly could, knock on every door we could. And then after we were able to dedicate this statue, all of a sudden, everything has been, wow, we really like this. And wow, all of a sudden an awareness over the last few years of how important responsibility is, and in particular, in relation to liberty and our freedoms, and what happens if we're not held accountable or responsible for what we have.
That's like my question. So, what brought you to this issue now, right? I mean, Viktor Frankl and his biography, has been around. His book has been, textbook in endless amounts of university courses and has been translated. So why now? Why do you think we need now this statue?
There's a beautiful quote by Victor Hugo, and it goes like this: "Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come." I think we're at
the right moment.
Yeah, a perfect
Yes.
storm, if you will. World conditions and so many different aspects of everything, that now is the time.
Right.
And I, being an impatient person, I would love to have seen this go up, 10 years ago.
Right.
But I think
Doesn't
also, and this is an important point, we feel like this is in higher hands.
Mm-hmm.
No pun intended, actually.
Yeah, no, I was about to say there are lots of hands in this one, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and it's like timing is of the essence, and we particularly feel like with this project that is the case.
Yes.
Really interesting, but it also means there's a certain sense of urgency and now, in other words, involved.
Right.
If we go with that Victor Hugo quote, he doesn't mean that there's a window of opportunity that's 50 years wide, but it's usually kind of more narrow one. So
Right.
how long have you guys been going at this?
So when I met Mrs. Frankl, that was, so of course Dr. Frankl passed away in 1997, and then in 2004, with the encouragement of Stephen Covey, I was able to go over and meet Mrs. Frankl in Vienna at the Frankl Institute, and then she invited me into the Frankl home to show me some cool things of Dr. Frankl's.
There's an amazing story there that takes just a few minutes, but that story is worth knowing. It is everything. And it's
Then
the
tell us
reason-
the amazing story. Don't tease us.
Okay.
Come on.
But can we just tease you for a
No,
minute
come
with
on.
it?
Let's tell us.
Okay, he'll share that story, but to preface that, I want you to know that had it not been for this story he's going to share with you, I'm not sure that we would have really stuck with this as long as we have. But sometimes, and I'm sure everybody out there knows this, that sometimes something happens in your life that you just know you have to do something. And when I first heard this story, Gary and I had known each other a year, and he'd never told me the story he's going to tell you now. And when he told me this story, I said, this is your destiny. This is what you are meant to do. We have to do this. So go, Gary. What happened?
Now comes the story. This is teed up now perfectly, right?
So
Yeah, and thank you, sweetheart.
yes.
When I was asked by Dr. Covey to come up with a design, it was like, okay, what do we do now? What do we do with this design? Do the Frankls like it or whatever? I had an attorney at the time that had spent a couple of years in Austria, and he said, Gary, you have to go and show this to who? Mrs. Frankl, see what she likes. She would be the only person to be able to say, hey,
Right.
yay or nay. So I had no idea. I had cast one in stainless steel. We took it over there. I had a small entourage that went with me and had a little black cover over this to unveil it to Mrs. Frankl. Took the cover off. She looked at it. You know, a lot of times Germans aren't the most expressive right off the bat, but we felt a connection. And she said, Gary, I want to show you something. So from the Frankl Institute, she invited me a short little walk up to the Frankl flat.
Right.
We went up the stairs and went up there, and we actually went into Dr. Frankl's office. Books all over the place, bookshelves. She says, I want you to notice something. On that bookshelf right there next to Dr. Frankl's desk, you see a niche. It's about 2 foot by 2 foot, and it was clad with leather. Inside that niche was a wood carving. It was a wood carving of a man reaching up.
Right there.
There it is, right there.
There it is. Yes. Wow.
Reaching up. And she told me, she says, that wood carving, that statue was very, very important to my husband. He got that right after being released, freed from the Holocaust camps. He saw it in a market, actually had to put it on layaway, retrieved the statue, put it there in that bookshelf, and he called it the Suffering Man. And I'm like, well, how come? And she said, because he would ask the question, where's the hand reaching down? She says, you, my American friend, have brought to me a sculpture.
That is exactly about the
question. I mean, it was like the Hallelujah chorus went off. It was a very emotional time. We connected, I think, closer than we possibly could have. And it was just...
and then you just had another coffee and another nice piece of cake in Vienna, got on a plane, and then you said, Leesa, listen.
We actually went out to
what we really need
dinner
to do is really to dedicate our life to this cause. So tell me, Leesa, you suggested that there's a particular way how you want to raise the money.
Yes. We see the first third of the money coming from wealthy donors. And we have several of those in the wings, just waiting for us to have a site identified and a contract for that site. We've come this close a few times, only to be very disappointed. Okay, secondly, the second third we want to have come from corporations and companies and families across the country and internationally, because it is an international project. But my favorite piece is the third part. And we want that money to be raised the same way the Statue of Liberty money was raised. Now, remember that France gifted the 150-foot Statue of Liberty, but did you know that it sat in crates for about 8 months because America's job, while France was building that, was to create the pedestal. And it didn't happen, and it didn't happen, and Bartholdi, the sculptor, went coast to coast on the train with his little miniatures and his murals trying to raise awareness and money. Nothing happened. It wasn't until Pulitzer, Joseph Pulitzer, who owned the largest newspaper in the world at the time, until he put in the newspaper, he kind of called out all the wealthy and said, what's wrong with you? Why can't you do this? And he had an idea. And he said, I will print the names of anyone who donates a dime or more to build the pedestal. And it happened very quickly. So we want to follow that. And we want, now we can digitally recognize everyone who donate $1 or more. More importantly, I always say it's more than a monument, it's a movement. And part of that movement is education. And you said, what is responsibility about You don't want to hear my answer. It's really big. But responsibility is all about the next generations and what we leave to that generation that's coming up. And if we can't teach them to be more responsible, then there it goes, right there. So
you made an interesting, an interesting point about the kind of global nature of this as well. I mean, we started talking about bookending the United States, right, the two sculptures, but then at the same time, Frankl has such a global resonance. There are institutes around the world. His book is translated into numerous languages. His logotherapy is still taught around the world. So is there an idea also of globally raising this awareness that in lots of ways then the Statue of Liberty and the Statue of Responsibilities kind of become global beacons, so to speak?
From the very beginning, I visualized satellite statues all over the world, in troubled places, in, wherever it be, Tel Aviv, Lebanon, India, wherever. Because being a visual person, I think when people see this, they instantly know, okay, there's a message there.
Right, no.
That is that we need to come together and be a part of this global community. This is
part of the solution.
Another sculpture I did, it's called Synergy, and it's that whole idea of the connectedness.
Right, beautiful. Nice job. So tell us, I mean, we know the statue, we know now about its meaning, we know about its height. How much money do you guys need to raise for something like this?
It depends on how big the campus is around it, which could be, it could be $100 million project, it could be a $400 million project. Museums, theaters, peace gardens.
Holocaust
museums, it's totally open. It'll be done in stages. The first thing is to get that statue up so that people can feel the message of, like Leesa said, not just a monument, the movement.
Right.
What is the material that you envision to use for this?
So this is what's cool. The first one that I did that I took to Mrs. Frankl, I cast in stainless steel.
Right.
I have my own foundry and we did that. But we envision the statue itself to be cast in aluminum.
All right.
And the reason why is because 70% of all aluminum on the planet is recycled. So you talk about responsibility and leave less of a carbon footprint.
Yeah.
And that way, the children all across the country who want to participate and have their name on the statue, they just take lessons on things like recycling, and that's their donation.
Wonderful idea. So in other words, that's needed is a site, right? So
yes.
So the poor...
you have somebody out there listening that wants a tax write-off to donate 5
and
acres.
has some space to give in San Diego.
Call me.
Well, it's going to happen. It's a beautiful idea, no doubt. Have you been in touch more with any of the other Frankl Institutes around the world? It's been...
Well, and through Alex, Alex is so awesome, Alex Vesely, and just his contacts and stuff, absolutely.
Well, and in connection with our dedication at Alliant University last year, Alliant has now partnered with us with Alex Vesely, and so we have an office there officially for the Viktor Frankl Institute of America, which Alex launched during COVID online, but they now have official offices right there where the statue is.
So tell me, I have like some folks just sitting just across behind the screen and they're getting all excited and find this idea wonderful. So if now anyone gets to hear this and says, oh, this is really something I really so strongly, feel this and want to be part of this, is there any way for how individuals can now, reach out to the two and say, we really want to, be involved, we really want to spread the news or be just volunteers? How does it look like?
Yes, and the number one way to do that is to reach out to us through our website. And that website is statueofresponsibility.org.
Statueofresponsibility.org, nothing less.
We are a fully approved 501c3.
Yeah.
It's all a tax write-off. And as we find that location, we will be able to launch a more detailed plan because what we do as far as program and movement will really be determined by how big the footprint is.
Wonderful story. I think anyone who will listen today to us will just want to keep your fingers crossed for you, because we're all going to benefit. If you are successful, it'll be a big win for all of us, not just in the United States, like we said, but more globally. Beautiful idea, and I think also really one that strikes a big chord with Viktor Frankl and his unusual mission, really. And I think this whole idea that these days, it's not pleasure, it's not power, but it's meaning, more and more that we're striving for in this ever-changing world of ours. It's something that you talked about, the moment in time, right? This is probably also in lots of ways that message right now resonates again so more strongly with us than it would have done maybe 10, 20 years, considering the dramatic changes that are going on. I think phones are ringing. This, in this case, must be minus. If folks are already watching us and want to know whether you are and all that, then it's ringing on your
every
side.
Dollar counts.
Yeah, no,
every
exactly.
Dollar. So
exactly.
Don't feel like you have to make the $1 million donation to make a difference. Every dollar.
No, I love the idea how you want to fundraise, because then it becomes, like you said so well, more of a movement as well while at it. Thank you so much, Gary and Leesa. I wish you all the very best, and I think I'll be one of the first individuals who happily books this flight just to see the statue when it's up there. Really, really exciting. Thank you so much for joining my podcast today, and wish you all the best of luck. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Dean
having
Roemer.
us.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you again today for joining us in Spool, and make sure to tune in for our next show as well. My name is Nils Roemer. I'm the Dean of the Basque School at UT Dallas.